Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Owning Up podcast, where we share stories, information, and inspiration from fellow military spouses and thought leaders in our community. And today I am so excited. We have our special guest, Charlinda Scales, who is an entrepreneur. She serves as the founder and CEO of Mutt Sauce. And I think I might be saying this wrong, OH Taste. Is that correct?
Okay.
Taste. Okay, got it. She is the executive director of O Taste Foundation, which is a 501c3, and she is the author of a business empowerment book called Rock Bottom Has a Trampoline, which I cannot wait to get into. She is also a featured TEDx speaker, and her talent is cultivating influential people by meeting them where they are in life and business. Her military career spans over 15 years, and she is currently an Air Force reservist stationed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Charlinda's Mutt Sauce was a secret ingredient from her grandfather, Charlie Farrell, and she has turned it into a sauce for the everyday cook to enjoy with your friends and family at home. Welcome to the Owning Up podcast. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you for having me, sis. I'm glad to be here.
Listen, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
We're going to jump into your book in a second, because there were certain parts of the book that I was reading, I was like, oh my gosh, she told me about this that night in that small DC hotel room.
Yep.
And it seemed like so unbelievable. And so I want to talk a little bit more about like the transparency and like how hard it was to write down and really to share that with the world. But first, tell our listeners who don't know who you are, what you do, more about like your background and where you're from.
Yeah, well, I'm a country girl from Tennessee. So I was born and raised in Tennessee in a multi-generational home. So I actually grew up with my grandparents and my mom and my aunt and her boys. So it's full house. And my upbringing, I think, shapes a lot of what people see today, like my values of family and really living by those core values. I went to school at Clemson University, graduated. I was on a Reserve Officer Training Corps scholarship. So I went in to the military after college, served over 10 years. I'm actually at, I think, almost 17 years now between active duty and reserve time. And while I was on active duty is when I received the recipe from my grandfather for the sauce that we know as Mutt Sauce. It was his call sign when he served in Korea and Vietnam as an aircraft technician, Charlie Farrell, also known as Mutt Farrell. So that's where the name resides, and created it while I was on active duty. It kind of took a life of its own. So I've been an entrepreneur for over 10 years. And now in my position as an executive director of the foundation, I'm giving back or continue to pay forward what was given to me by building a commercial kitchen. It's one of the largest commercial kitchens in Ohio, and one of the largest ones in the country, and 6 AAA kitchen incubators in Dayton, Ohio. So we built that, plus financial literacy programs for food entrepreneurs. And I love mentoring. I love any chance to tell people how to not make the mistakes that I made.
Yeah, we need a lot of that. Entrepreneurship, I feel every corner you're making a mistake, and sometimes you think you're doing it right, and then you just have to go through it and learn the lessons, right? We were just talking about launching a podcast, and I was like, listen, you can batch it. That would be the goal. Like if that was the only thing you did, but like you just said, you have Mutt Sauce, your reserve. There are so many different things that you do to contribute not only to the community, but for your continued, progress in your career and your business goals, that like, if the podcast was the only thing you did, then that would be ideal. But, we have to I just said, give yourself grace. Sometimes we're going to be able to batch, and sometimes we're going to be able to fit it in where it can happen, because you have to focus on the things that are moving the business forward.
Yeah. Well, there's also life. So, I became a mom March 2020. My toddler just turned 4. He used to be the pandemic clock baby. So like people wanted to know how long they were in quarantine. It was however old he was. But yeah, that's when we talk about mentorship, life is the factor that people sometimes leave out. And it's the biggest one, is life is going to happen. So
yeah. And we've been talking a lot about that too with the new program that I launched, Elevate to Impact, is you cannot do business. There's So first of all, I have realized that there is no life-work balance. I feel like it's never a balance. I'm just ever evolving flow. So there's going to be a flow. There's going to be peak seasons and low seasons in either life or business. And so I'm just calling it a work-life harmony. Like, where can we say like, hey, my energy is shifting from family right now to business because of this, and then it'll go back to normal, right? So there's this ever flowing so that we don't put these pressures of like, especially women who will have businesses, who are parents, we're always saying like, I got to find the balance there. We don't have to find a balance. It's not mandatory. There are going to be seasons where you feel phenomenal as a mom and you're engaged and you're available, and you're going to feel crappy about where you are in your business or things aren't moving the way you want. And then there are going to be seasons where you are just on top of it. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm the best entrepreneur in the world. Things are going great. And then you feel like you don't have enough time for your kids, or you're not serving them. You're not loving them enough. So there's never a balance. There's just a flow.
I totally agree. I don't subscribe to balance. If your attention is on one thing, it's not on the other. So that's 100%.
It doesn't work. And I also think like this work-life balance thing happened like for women mostly only. Like, you have to figure out work-life balance as a woman. Well, I don't remember anybody telling my husband that. Like,
right.
You know? Okay.
Even with kids, like being in the military, I was thinking about how, trying to keep up career-wise, you as a woman had to sometimes sacrifice family, to the point that my doctor was like, if you wait any longer, it's not going to be biologically possible for you. So, throw a Hail Mary for yourself. It's never going to be the right time.
Yeah. There's never a right time. That's also in business, like ever. But it's been really exciting to see you from, I think, the last time. So I've seen you a couple of times. I met you a few years ago at Military Influencer Conference. And I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, I have sauce. And I was like, oh my gosh, so exciting. And I really you just have this like aura of joy and like, just a way of making people feel like they're a part of what you're doing. And I know that that's what you're doing with the sauce. Tell us a little bit more about that journey, because having a product or even a food can be a challenge, right? So most of our community have service-based businesses because it's something they can take with them. But share with us more how that journey kind of evolved, because we've seen the ups and downs.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a product of great mentoring, because it was not something where I woke up and said, I want to have a food business. The recipe, like I said, came from my grandfather, and he had already passed. So that's one part of it. He had already passed on, and he was not there to give me the instructions on what to do with this. We had a relationship where I normally would have to do chores to get anything like an allowance. So the first time I ever got an allowance was an exchange of, you have to make straight A's, or you can get a B. But it was never just given to you. Nothing was ever just given. So this gesture of just giving me a recipe left me very confused of what to do. I Googled free help because I was still in the military. I didn't know what to do with this. And it was SCORE who came up in the search online, and they provide free mentorship across the country. I walked in, they assigned me a mentor, and he said, I see something that you may not see in this. Because I said, well, just teach me how to make a couple of bottles for friends and family to help them with the grieving process, and maybe the bottles will provide them some comfort. That was the extent of it. But he said, I see this on the shelf of grocery stores. You can sell this at farmers markets. So sometimes people believe in you beyond your belief in yourself. And you just have to hold on to that and say, if you can see it, okay. Now, I did have a wacky dream where I walked in a grocery store and all the bottles in all the shelves had bottles with his face on it. And I was like, well, maybe there's something there. Okay, I can see it too now. And I just followed the instructions. So try not to get overwhelmed. He made a checklist. He said, just tackle a couple things each night. But he was very much focused on, don't try to be everywhere at first. You really need to start with your processes and your systems and knowing exactly why you want to do this and making sure that you have a support system to do this. And I wish I could grab anybody in a startup and tell them to do that first, because they'll start out with, I have a really great cupcake and it tastes great and I love it. And so everybody else is going to love it. And I went out and I cashed out my 401k and we're doing this. And I was like, I don't hear processes. I don't hear the discussion with your family on this journey, because just like military, if you decide to do this, everybody's doing it.
Right.
Whether or not they signed up for it, they're on the ride too.
It's a family affair.
Yes. And so you need to have their buy-in and support, because you don't want to be at the end of the journey, wherever that is, whether it's the end of your career or you've gotten acquired or something, and you have the twisted up faces looking at you like, well, are you happy now? I mean, you missed birthdays, you missed this, you were never here. And they're not, and they don't feel like they were a part of it. They were just on the sidelines and mentioned in passing as you got awards. And I want to make sure that I catch them before they start, to let them know what is most important. And that was, I think, how Mutt Sauce started out well, because we put those processes in place at first. Being a food product, I'm still learning. So we started out doing the festivals in grocery stores. I went on Shark Tank at 6 months in business, which is not a typical experience for most food products, to be at Shark Tank at 6 months, but that taught me a lot. Did I get a deal? No. But even not getting a deal at Shark Tank was a great thing, because I was able to go the next 4 years understanding from a 10,000-foot view what an investor would care about. And then the big break, I guess, we say the peak, was winning the Bob Evans Heroes CEOs contest. And I think that was 2017. And we got mentorship and funding. So I got $25,000 in funding. And then the surprise was mentorship from Damon John, the shark from Shark Tank. So that's the high, right? And the very next week, my whole personal life fell apart at the same time that I learned that I made the cover of Military Spouse magazine.
Which you discuss in your book.
Yes.
As
I was
well.
like, I'm no longer a military. I was thinking at the time, I was trying to convince the editor not to do it, because I was like, I'm on my way to not being anybody's spouse.
Yeah.
So please don't do this. And
yeah,
those are the things that happen on the journey. So yeah, for Mutt Sauce, there were the highs. I had to go through the lows privately, get through those. Now with COVID happening, we stared down zero revenue. So zero projected revenue, because we had no online presence. We weren't selling online. So that's how we pivoted to going 90% e-com. And we did really well. We were on QVC. We got the contract with Lowe's.com. We were selling on muttsauce.com. It was doing great. And just recently, in the last week, discussing what does an acquisition look like in the food industry now. And they said, well, a lot of the companies who are doing acquisitions are looking at how you're doing in stores. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Because no, come on, in stores, like, look at the landscape of the last few years. Like, who really survived in stores unless you were one of those big giants?
Yes, but that's where the metrics are now going back
to stores.
Yeah, back to stores. So it's an adventure. It's an adventure.
Yeah, I feel like even as you're talking about that, if we're talking about strategy and people asking for that, you can show the metrics from being in store to online. You know what I mean? I feel like that is very powerful. If you were able to do the lows and do all these things, those metrics matter, because those are millions of people with their eyes on your product. And so
I think online works better for products that are doing B2C, because you have bigger margins than you do in grocery. I just don't think that those nationwide deals or hundreds of store deals are conducive for small businesses. because a lot of times they will not give you warehouse distribution. For example, mine was DSD, it was direct store delivery. So part of my margin was eaten up by hiring another distribution company to go from door to door to door delivering my product versus just all the pallets to one warehouse.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's ebb and flow. So they got to evolve on both ends. So the grocery stores need to evolve their tactics with recruiting and helping small business owners thrive there. And then also there has to be some path of acquisition for e-com products.
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't, the math ain't mathing is what I'm saying. Like, I'm like, it doesn't make sense if, you know, there has to be something for both. Can't just be one or the other. And maybe that's where you're going to be able to shine and show them your story and say like, hey, this is doable because of these, look at these metrics and data. I think we have a whole other podcast on the metrics and the data and why it's so important, as when you were talking earlier about the mentorship and make sure your basically your foundation is built. That's one thing I wish somebody would have talked to me early 10 years ago, is really understanding data and understanding where your people are coming from, where they're purchasing from, so you don't waste your time in places that they're not even looking at your product or service. So I really like that you mentioned the mentorship and telling them just to focus in one area. I feel like we don't do that because there's such an overwhelm of information. And even in AMC, when we have spouses who come, they'll say, so-and-so said this, and so-and-so said that, and so-and-so said this. I'm like, hold up, you got 5 mentors. You need to narrow it down to like 1, maybe 2 in different areas and move that way. You can't, if you have 5 people telling you 5 different things, you're never going to take action on one thing. Like because you're confused and there's so much information. So I love that advice. Mentorship has also helped me immensely. And some of the mentorship that I even have are people that are not even in a business. They're just either advocates or, you know, they're in different fields. So always look at mentors in different areas as well, because they can offer such a valuable insight from different lenses. So I really like that. The one thing I wanted to ask you when you were talking a second ago was, you had mentioned all of these things. You know, we listened to the ebbs and flows of Mutt Sauce, right? As you were going through those transitions, what kept you going? Because you share in your book, and we can maybe talk a little bit more about the book now. You share in your book how you had these ebbs and flows, and you talked about Military Spouse Magazine. When these things were happening, right, and they were like jab after jab that can bring you down, what kept you going? Like, where were some of the things, like what kept you getting up and just keep moving forward?
Yeah, well, I think that the first one, because my book, Rock Bottom Has a Trampoline, the first chapter is pretty raw, only because it was the one thing that I didn't want to talk about. And I will say bravo to Brunella. Brunella is my ghostwriter, and she and I sat down and we talked about what I really want to get across to people. And what I really wanted to get across to people was that rock bottom is not permanent. It is a moment. You were not born to hit rock bottom and stay there. You were born for great things. And your life in the process of living is to discover why, you know, exactly what that is. And it might not be as magical as like change the world or something. Maybe you were just meant to make a sauce that brings people together. And that's fine. When I was in this moment where everything publicly looked great, it was really hard for me to accept that in this moment that I had, where I'm about to walk away from a life that I had known for a decade, and I wasn't unhappy. And that was the hardest part too. It's like sometimes you're going to have to make hard decisions when your life is comfortable, and you're going to have to make a decision to make it uncomfortable. And when I was sitting in the apartment with no furniture and talking to the editor of Military Spouse magazine, she said, "It's bigger than you." And the image of a military spouse had been stereotyped. It was the woman with the poster with the kids at the airport, basically that kind of image that they had given to military spouses, that they're doing so much more. Even just the existence of AMSI is evidence of how dynamic mil spouses are. They're not just women, they're also men. They're running companies. They're making impacts not only nationally, but globally. And in that moment, I could have chosen to say, woe is me. Life sucks. I cannot do the things. And I don't want to do this, because in the moment I was saying, it feels fraudulent because my marriage didn't work. She said, it's not a moment where we're saying, oh, wow, you were the best wife ever. It is, what were you accomplishing while you were in your role as a military spouse? That is the story that we're trying to tell. What were you doing? And I said, okay. So that was something where it's the reality that whatever you're feeling at the moment, there's so much, there's another choice. There's so much bigger things that are on the other side of your pain, on the other side of the doubt that you're feeling in the moment. And if you harness those two things, I was not meant to hit rock bottom and stay there. And there's something bigger past this. And that's the first time I made a decision that drastic. They said, all right, fine. Okay. And then it was just a waterfall of wonderful things that happened after that, not only professionally, but the connections made to other people who've been in the situation that provided the healing that I needed to have. It might not have been immediate, but yeah, I healed too from the connections that were made because I just decided to keep going.
You're on the other side is so powerful. So I think when you're going through it, when I read the book, first of all, I knew some of the stuff because we had room together. What was that event that we were at?
It was like it was an award show. I was like an award event.
Yeah. So we met there, and I don't know how we ended up being roommates. I needed a roommate. I put something out there. You were like, I have a room. I was like, can I share with you? I know you don't know me. I like it to be cold. Do you mind? And you were like, no, absolutely. No problem. But I remember when we were there and you were sharing, you were just so transparent and honest. And you're like, hey girl, this is not what it looks like. Like, I have all of these other things happening. And I was like, but you're gracefully doing all of this. Like, you were inspiring me. I was like, she has all of these really life-changing things happening to her right now. She's still showing up here. She's still looking amazing and glamorous and talking and networking and representing her brand and herself. And you also had surgery or something to your foot. I mean, it was
yeah.
You were in the depths of it. Okay.
I had multiple foot surgeries. I had foot surgery and then it got botched. So I had to have another foot surgery during that whole, yeah, girl.
Yeah, that was, and I brought like the wine in the box and I was like, let's drink this wine. You need this wine too. And you were telling me and I was like, oh my gosh. But I will say, like, for me in that moment, not even knowing you and really just connecting with you, like for the first time, like in person, and when you room with somebody, you just have opportunities to really get to know them in a very intimate way that maybe you would not have because you're spending time together. Mm-hmm. I will say it was so inspiring and so motivating to me, because most people would have curled up with their bonbons on Netflix, canceled it all, closed all the shades, turned off the phone and been like, I am done. You know, which I'm sure you've had those moments where you're like, I'm having a pity party this weekend. I'll be back on Monday. That's entrepreneurship life. That's like entrepreneur life in general. But it was so inspiring. And reading the book, I felt like I was a part of it because I had that conversation with you. And I was like, oh, I remember this. Oh, I remember that. And listening to you now saying like, I felt like I was a fraud. I think when I read it and when I look back on it, it wasn't like you were really, that was your life, and it was pulled from under you without notice. So how were you a fraud, right? Like it was not your doing. You didn't lie about who you were and what you were doing. It just, circumstances changed, but it does not take away the credit and the work that you've done before that. Right. So it was really inspiring. And I love the way at the, you know, you say it's a trampoline, and it's true. You know, there's only one way to go once you bounce back up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it will happen. I mean, sometimes it's a small thing that helps that transition. Even my mother told me the day that I was having words like, I can't. She said, when you feel that way, I just want you to go and lay down. I'm like, what? She's like, it could be 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Just go lay down. If you don't think that you can make it to tomorrow, I want you to just, if you have to have a wine or a hot bath, and just delete everything and lay down. And when you wake up the next day, you are wrong. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you're wrong because you said you can't make it to tomorrow. And when tomorrow gets here and you're part of tomorrow, then I want you to know that you were meant to be part of tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a blessing, and you need to harness that blessing and show up. So that was the pep talk that she gave me. And I did have the wine, and I did cry myself to sleep. And tomorrow came, and she said, what happens is if you have enough tomorrows, slowly the pain will start to subside. There's the times when the pain's so heavy you can't breathe. So, but there's going to be the day where you wake up and it's a great day from start to finish, and nothing affected that day. Nothing made it a bad day randomly. And that's the existence that I was secretly living in. Was I would wake up happy. I was a happy person, but stuff could happen in the day and interactions in my marriage where I would be crying myself to sleep by the end of the night and trying to hide the fact that I'm crying myself to sleep. And she said, you're going to have a day where you're going to wake up and go to sleep, and everything will be fine. And it'll be a good day.
We all need a mom like yours.
Yeah.
It's true. And your mom is so involved in your life too. I love how, you know, she's lives with you guys and she's part of that journey. You know, that's something that a lot of military families don't have. And I love that you share that on social media, as I feel like people can get like a peek into like what it takes to run a company of your, you know, to run a sauce company, to be a woman, to be a minority led organization, and to be doing all these phenomenal things. And then to be sharing like, hey, my parents helped me, where a lot of people will think like, I can do this, right? You're saying like, I don't do this alone. It takes a village. It takes a community to help you get through.
Absolutely. I have to pay the highest respect to my parents. And, you know, I don't know why there's even, I don't know if it's mostly Western, but like it's normal for some families that your parents do live with you. But when I approached it, people were like, oh, your parents live with you? Or you live with your parents? I'm like, I'm happy. Like I've never been happier to have this, almost the way I grew up with the multi-generational home, and my son seeing them every day. And I didn't realize how much the military kept me away from home. I was always on a plane. I was never here. And I can't imagine now as a parent being absent the way I used to be absent in that relationship I have with my parents. So it's kind of like getting the quality time back. It's a great opportunity to get the quality time back. And they give a great perspective on things. I do think more about what my calendar looks like. You know, it used to just, I would say yes to everything because I was so afraid of missing an opportunity. Yeah. They're just like, you need to learn how to say no. There was nobody telling me that. It's like, you need to learn how to say no.
Yeah. I think in the early stages, as you talk about that, one of the reasons I was so scared to say no is because there wasn't a whole bunch coming in at that time, right? So in the early stages, when I launched my PR company, it was like, well, whatever I could get to like build this, as long as they were not like misaligned with my norms and values or doing anything crazy, what do I need to do to build this portfolio? And we don't talk a lot about aligning with your norms and values. One of the things that I just never even thought about was making sure, like, I'm a believer, making sure that whoever you connect with, whoever you bring into your space, whoever you partner with, that they have those types of beliefs systems. And that's why I align with myself with a lot of the different partners and people that I do business and don't do business with anymore. I think those are conversations that we're not having in business, right? Like how to say no and why to say no. So in the early stages, I don't know about you, but I said yes to a lot of things that maybe were underpaying me, too much work, because I know I needed to build my portfolio to get where I wanted to be. But if you're listening to this and you're a new business owner, there's so much more information out there to make sure you align yourself with the right people, organizations, and make yes to the right decisions. And the one place you should be asking is your mentorship, and then asking your community. And sometimes, I don't know for you either, if this is true, in the early stages, I was so scared to ask questions because I feel like, oh, I'm a business owner, I should know this, because if I don't know this and I'm asking question, that doesn't make me an expert. That doesn't make me a good business owner. And I just want to say, like, ask the questions, because there's probably 40 other people that have the same question in the same community.
Exactly.
Seriously. Same question. I mean, I go into communities and ask questions where there are people of, who CEOs who have done, these types of things. I'll ask a question, and there are other people who have the same exact question on the same journey. And I feel like that is so powerful. And that's another resource that we don't use is the mentorship, asking questions, learning to say no.
I'm the same way, especially in the food industry. There came a time where it just felt like I couldn't ask for help because I was the person who was helping people. Like you're calling me to get help from me. And in my head, I'm like, I need help. Like, who do I call for the help right now? Especially post-pandemic. Oh my gosh. I have a brand new baby. He's a newborn. I'm staring down zero projected revenue. I don't have a website. I don't know how to pivot this thing. I'm like, who the heck do I call? Meanwhile, my phone is blowing up. Can I get 15 minutes? I need to figure this out. I need you to help me. I'm like, help me. Where did you find that out? Let me Google that. I'm over there taking notes secretly as they're talking about what they're doing. I'm like, oh, that's great. That's a good idea. But yeah, I think that's a position that we get in sometimes is people will assume things of you and
perception.
Yeah, this perception. And that's why I've been so vocal about the reality of things. Because one is like the first page of my book, I think it was like, I am not a millionaire. And I'm not saying that is like, I can't bring value, but I'm not some guru who's telling you things based off of some half truth. Like you're hearing this from a working mother who is trying her best to make a better life for her child and for other people. But when you step to me, it's not, I can't tell you how to make $1 million yet. I haven't made $1 million. I can tell you how to not screw up a startup. I can tell you that. So yeah, that's the reality. That's the reality sometimes of being in that position where you've been in your industry for many years, and then people will assume that you have achieved it all, or because you are now associated, your peers. I have millionaire, billionaire friends. And so they'll look at that and be like, hey,
you got to know something.
You got to know something, let me have so-and-so's phone number.
That's the worst thing you can do. If you are listening to this, you are looking to connect with somebody in anybody's network. First of all, take your time and get to know the person.
Do the work.
Then you ask for an introduction. You don't go and ask for the phone number. We were actually just talking about this. I went to a retreat this weekend with Megan Brown and Laura Early for a leadership women's retreat. Christian at the, I think it's Southern Baptist Seminary School. And one of the things that we talked about was partnerships. When you, people have reached out and say, can I get this person's email or phone number? First of all, that is the number one place you've already screwed up, because if I already have a connection with them, the best thing for you to do is say, hey, Charlinda, I see that you're connected with so-and-so. I'm looking to do X, Y, and Z. Would you mind, if you think that this would be something they're interested in, making a warm introduction via email? You never just go and say, can I get their email or phone number? It's the most tacky thing ever.
It's so tacky.
So tacky. I don't care who you are. I think it's so rude. I've had people who are of high caliber ask me. I've had people who are just, I've had all kinds of people ask that before. And my relationships, I'm going to use USAA, for example. Do you know, I have been talking to Mike Kelly and all of them at USAA since like 2015 with my little Facebook group idea.
Really?
Yeah. It was always a great idea. They were always like, hey, Moni, once again, this is an incredible idea. Keep going. Da, 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 da. No, thank you. No, thank you. Like never until 2018. But it took me 3 years to build this relationship with mentors where they saw me, even though they told me no, I kept doing the thing.
That's the part that I want people to really hone in on. You took years building a relationship with the person and entity you wanted to do business with. You didn't just skip to the contractor or partnership with USAA. And I will say similarly, that is the experience I had after meeting Damon John. People would send the DM and be like, hey, I need to speak with Damon, or can you get me a meeting with Damon? Years. And I can't say we're BFFs and we don't talk every day, but even the amount of time that I have had with him took years, years of even getting that close. And even getting the endorsement on my book from him.
Oh, girl.
I cannot tell you, I almost fell out. And the publisher and Brunella, like, Charlinda, why are you so scared to ask him to do a book review? I said, because people don't realize I've never asked this man for anything. Yeah. I don't ask him for stuff. He's not in a position for me to be like, hey, yeah, I'm not in a position to be like, hey, just do this thing. So was it imposter syndrome? It wasn't like imposter syndrome. It was just like the reverence that I have for him prevented me from just flat out asking. So it was always stunning to me how people would just boldly be like, give me a shortcut. Just give me the number. Just, how can you put me in contact? I'm like, as soon as I get in contact, like just do the work. What is so hard with doing the work and building the relationship? Because they let you know something too. Like if they come to you and with that kind of thing, that they don't view you as someone they have a friendship or close relationship with, or they want to build it. It is transactional. Like you're letting me know that you just want to use me. Yeah. So yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
Glad we could clear the air on that one.
Listen, drop in all the nuggets. Seriously. Cleared. I mean, it's so, and two, it's like so powerful when it is a relationship. So, I've been in this relationship with them for like almost like 9 years, but they saw me launch this silly little Facebook group to like being able to help thousands of spouses and together impact lives of military spouses and their families. And when you have those one-off transactional relationships, I've had some, they do not feel as good. They really don't. Like they could give you a lot of money, but it does not feel as good. It really doesn't. And yeah, so if you're listening and you want to get a connection or an introduction, do the work. If you love what Charlinda does and you're like, man, I want to grow up and be just like her, do the work, invest the time, connect with her, figure out how you can support her, share information, share resources. And then when the opportunity arises, ask for it. But you have to build a relationship. The other thing I was going to say is you probably didn't ask him because you said you have reverence, you have respect for him, and you don't ask for favors all the time. You wait to that goal when you need a favor. When there's anybody in your space of that caliber that can change your life in some way because of the Rolodex that they have or the visibility that they have or the access, you don't just ask all the time. You wait till that one golden opportunity. You're like, hey, I would like this. Is this something that you'd be willing to do? You know, and they're far and few in between. You know, we were talking about this weekend, like there's relationships that I have, I've never asked for anything, never a thing. It will come one day where I will need it, but it will be, or, you know, that will be the time where you can say, hey, I'm looking to do this. Are you interested? Or can you support me in some way? And you just don't call in favors like that. It's tacky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, or people who don't take the time to cultivate a relationship before a business deal. I've experienced that I would say, especially in the last couple of years that I've had the kitchen project and the book come out, is there are people who just straight up jump into a sales pitch. Like, you need this service from me. We know each other. I'm like, just because we're on social media connected does not mean that we know each other. And when they send it to you, you're just like, heck no. Like, you're just trying to get on, frankly, you're just trying to get on the Charlinda payroll. And that is not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And maybe it would have been different if it was like, there have been times where you had shown that there was a return, like there's something that I'm going to get out of it other than a loss of $10,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
You have to show a benefit other than just straight up numbers. Like, I can get you this many sales, or I can grow your pages. I don't want to, you didn't even stop and ask me what I care about right now in life.
Or what are your initiatives this year? Maybe it's not money. Maybe you have different initiatives for different reasons or purposes. You know, I think that is really smart. And as you're talking about that, how do you protect that? How do you protect your energy? How do you protect that source of energy, right? Because you have, you know, like you're saying, first of all, social media, if you're not reading, if you're not up to date, guys, social media is just a highlight reel, and it is not exactly what it is. Even my social media, I had a crappy week last week, but because I personally, I only like to really share positive things because there's so much bad already on social, I choose not to share that. It doesn't mean that my life is perfect. It just means that that's what I'm sharing. But when people take these things as face value, the perception sometimes is incorrect. Like you shared with your book, like it looked like things were great, or it looks like this. So how do you protect that energy when the perception to other people is a certain way?
Yeah. Well, I tried a couple things. So my circle has gotten noticeably smaller over the last couple of years. And especially the kitchen project, I think it shocked people, especially we had the kitchen open in the last couple of weeks. I had two other co-founders. It was a foundation that we started during COVID and had a lot of naysayers in the beginning. I have to say we dealt with a lot of people who wanted to throw doubt into it. Like, you guys should really be focusing on your for-profits. You three have for-profits. Like, this isn't probably not the right time, or what you're pitching sounds too big for Dayton, Ohio. This is too much. Is it, we've seen concepts tried before, it didn't work. And I was like, just because it didn't work before doesn't mean it won't work now. Mm-hmm. And it went from a small restaurant that we were going to flip to it's a 10,000 square foot 2-story kitchen, and $4.3 million that we raised in 9 months with zero debt. So it's a zero debt project that people were like, Shade, how did you do it? Because we cut out so much bad energy.
Yes.
And we focused and honed in. We had a board of directors that were not just people who would tell us, yes, you guys are great. It wasn't like-minded people. We specifically were like, we want like-hearted people in our circle that shared the values, but were okay with telling us ways that we needed to grow as individuals and as co-founders. And it just seemed like we had dropped off the face of the earth for a while, and then popped up with like, hey guys, here's the soft opening of one of the largest kitchens in Ohio. Same thing with Mutt Sauce. I actually told someone in my DMs, was like, I'm going to stop telling people my plans. That was a mistake that I made, because normally if I would tell you what I'm going to do, 9 times out of 10, it's the one thing that I didn't do. So if I don't tell anyone, I can actually concentrate without the pressure of the world watching. Yeah. Oh, is she going to come out with X, Y, and Z because she announced it? But if you take the pressure away, don't announce it, just grind and do it. And you don't have to worry about the deadline. You don't have to worry about people watching your posts.
Yeah.
And you will have better success of it actually getting done. And then the book, I think it might, how do I say this? The way that my book came out and the team that I worked with is not who most people thought that I would work with. Mm-hmm. And the reason why the book came out when it did with who it did is because under the radar, what people weren't seeing was that Brunella reached out to me right after I gave the speech at Military Influencer, when I first told people what was going on in my marriage and everything. And she said, this story needs to be told. Have I had other writers come to me and say the same thing? Yes. But what did she do? Every year she came back. And then she said, let's talk. It's very precious. Let me have a few minutes of your time. And I said, all right. And she said, I just want to talk through an outline of what your book would be like. Now that's one step further than everybody else had done. Because she's like, I know you are doing a million things. So I'm going to help you time block this hour to walk me through an outline of your book. She did the work of taking that conversation, turning it into almost 100-page outline, and turned it into the publisher, sent me a note and said, I want to apologize. I figured I would just ask for an apology. I went ahead and sent that to the manuscript to someone. And then the publisher called back like, this is the best outline I've ever seen. I would like to offer you a contract. Now, did she ever jump in my DM and say, pay me, I'll do this? No, she did it. And she said, all I want is the opportunity to work with you and show you my talent. And that is how that book got a publishing deal. That's how it got done. Then it was #2 on Amazon. I'm looking at her like, this is crazy. She said, I could see it.
Yeah.
I needed you to see it. And the only way to do that is just to make it happen. So that is the difference between all the writers that I met from 2017 to when the book came out and Brunella.
Yeah. And I've worked with Brunella. She's incredible. She is a beast in her own right, like in her expertise and skill set. And so there is another example of a relationship that happened and curated over time.
Oh yeah.
You know, she didn't just reach out and say, hey, X, Y, and Z, give me this how much it would cost, right? She understood and she saw the value, she saw the vision, you know, and she believed in you. And sometimes that's all we need.
I kept telling her, I was like, I'm not a writer. I was so overwhelmed by just the thought of, I have to write the book and I'm looking at my chaotic life. Like, I can't write this book. I don't have time. She said, I never asked you to write a word. I just need you to answer the phone when I call you and ask you about your life and bring the tissues. Cause I'm going to ask you some stuff. That's the agreement. You be completely open with me.
Yeah.
And, so that's how it worked. And people were saying like, how did all these things transpire? Because I had to take a step back, make my circle smaller and get quiet.
Yeah.
And I think this age of social media where we want to post everything. And there's some stuff that if you really want the payoff, you need to just don't talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, the last month has been so crazy, but I've had really 2 amazing events and things happen in my life that are shifting my energy and my focus. And one is, you know, my husband and I have been married 25 years. We went to a marriage retreat. It was phenomenal. It was on time. My husband's been in command. We just got orders to Germany. Like, it's just like really on time, but I haven't shared that on social media yet. when I have time to like reconnect in those spaces, I feel like you have so much return. And this past weekend, just taking time to get away from the family and dive into the word and be around other women who are praying over you, who are praying for your family, for your business, for your spirit, for your motherhood, for like everything. It changes and it realigns your focus of what's important. And that's what that quiet does to you.
Absolutely.
It's that quiet space. So
and there's no regrets with taking that step back, because if that meant more quality time with people that you love, with, you know, the people who most matter are those who will be with you at the end of the journey.
Yes. Yes.
And that's the only people that really matter. And it is great to be able to share things with the public or share things with people on social media. But I would rather see my family smiling. I would rather see my son healthy, mentally and emotionally, and give him things that I didn't quite have growing up. Not because anyone was neglectful, but because I had a mother who was working her butt off every day, multiple jobs to make ends meet. And I was like, I'm in a position now where I could give her a retirement, give my dad something to do, like meaningful, contribute to the family. Like I don't know, how do I describe it? He's a very quiet guy. So when I post him on social media, it's in a joking manner, like, look, he waved. But because he's so shy. And then my son, he travels with me. So anytime I do keynotes now, the whole family flies. Everyone goes with me. And that's a blessing that I wanted to be able to give them, because I want them to feel like everything that I'm accomplishing, they're accomplishing too.
Oh my gosh. And I think that's the perfect note to end this time together. Whatever you are doing or building in your business, include your family, because they are a part of it and they want to see you happy and you thrive and you grow. And you never know what can happen. It could be a legacy and the generational wholeness that you can provide for your whole family and your children's children's children, you know? So absolutely. I love that. This has been such a great hour well spent. I feel like I'm getting so much energy from you. When I get off this, I'm gonna be like, you know, just excited, motivated. Tell us more about what you have coming up, how people can get involved with the kitchen, where we can find Mutt Sauce, how we can hire you to speak, honey, all the things.
Yeah, sure. Well, I would say the central location is charlindagene.com, where I will tell you what's going on in all the realms. If you want to get a holistic view of the madness, the fun madness. I have a couple big keynotes coming up. There's April. I don't know if I'm supposed to can announce it yet, but I will go ahead and do it. MilSpouse Fest. I'm the keynoter for MilSpouse Fest. And then the Women Veterans Cruise to the Bahamas is this June. So I'm the keynote speaker for that as well. Mutt Sauce, we are hyper local. So if you're in Ohio, you can go to Ohio stores, but you can also catch it on muttsauce.com. 6888 Kitchen is open for business here in Dayton, Ohio. And if you know of a food entrepreneur in the local area, hey, send them our way.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending time with me and sharing more about your journey with our community. I know it's going to help somebody, whether it's, you know, sharing the truth and being transparent, or giving away some of these great tips we did on partnerships and aligning your norms and values. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, sis. Onward and upward.
Yes, ma'am. End the recording here.